Hey, and welcome to this is our third one, isn't it, Kath? Our
It
third one?
is. It's our
Yeah,
third Educators Can.
it's pretty exciting. So every Wednesday night at 7:30, well, we're a bit late because we had some tech issues tonight. At
Yeah.
7:30, we come in and we chat and we answer questions about family daycare and programming and all those interesting things that quite often you might be a little nervous to ask. So we have people coming in to ask questions. We also would love to hear from you. So leave a comment below if you have a particular question that we haven't answered tonight. And hopefully we will get time. That's the whole focus. And we will answer your questions as we go. If we aren't able to answer your questions tonight, we'll definitely do it either next week or we'll do a post later in the week anyway. We have some really good questions come in over the last week, which we're pretty excited to get into. So if you are new to the page, because I've had quite a few new people following the page this week, this is Kath. Oh, which way?
Hi. Oh,
This is Kath Halsler from Simple Reflect, and she is our programming expert, I would say. All things about programming. She runs her very successful family daycare and is part of the team at Simple Reflect, who's developed an app to help you programming to make it so much simpler. So,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So you want to check her out. We'll put I didn't put your link 2 weeks ago. I forgot to put the link to your page. So I will definitely do that tonight. But if you just Google Simple Reflect, you'll definitely find her website.
Yeah,
So
it come up.
yes. We're pretty excited to be doing these. The whole point of them. Do you want to tell everyone what the point of us doing these chats are?
The point of them is just to uplift educators, to recognise that we're not on our own. We have more support around us than we realise, that we can connect with other educators and really toss our ideas around and anything that we're struggling with, that we really can do more as educators than I think we can. Sometimes we get in a little bit of a rut and we feel a little bit isolated, and we have people around us that we just don't realise are there. So this is, I think, our way of offering support, offering connection, giving you a place where you can ask questions that you might not have felt comfortable asking somewhere else, and just empowering educators that we really can connect on different levels.
Yes, excellent. Because, some educators who don't have vehicles to use for family daycare, it's really hard to go out and meet people. And it's great to chat in the Facebook groups. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there for educators.
Yeah.
But sometimes we really we want to hear from people. We want to see people. And that's what we want to be doing for you today and tonight, so that you can, hear some advice and just listen to us chat away, really. So let's start. The first question we have for tonight is, let me just let's have a look. Hang on. Is, can you run your family daycare from an apartment? Now, I got this email. I actually got it this morning. I've had it a few times before. I've had this question come up.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion on this one?
Absolutely. Look, if you're in an apartment and you're passionate about running a family daycare and you believe that you can make it work, that you actually can set up your environment so it's a positive environment that you can have the children in, then absolutely. And there's lots of options for apartments as well. I know even in houses, when educators are maybe doing up their backyard, they will go to the park for the week, or they will walk around the block, or they will connect with another educator. There's lots and lots of ways that you can have your children out and about without having to stay within your environment 100% of the time.
Yes, I think that's a good point. I know up here on the Sunshine Coast, I mean, we're kind of more of a rural area, I guess, in terms we're not right in the center of the city in Brisbane. There's not a huge amount of families living in apartments, but there are still quite a lot of townhouses kind of thing. There are some schemes up here that kind of won't even look at you if you're running out of an apartment or a townhouse, unless you've got a yard. And their reasoning behind it is you don't have enough space. However, it's not totally ruled out. So as you said, like if you're able to go to them with your plan saying, okay, this is my space. I'm so close to a park or whatever it is. These are the kinds of activities I'm going to do. You may be walking distance to a library and other activities that you can go and do. Then if you actually make your case, I really think that it would be a possibility. You just need to keep in mind, do parents want that? Because you can go through this whole process, but if parents don't really want that, then you're going to find it very difficult to fill those vacancies. But the person who emailed me this morning was actually based in the centre of Melbourne. So, I think that is quite a reasonable thing because quite often you're very close to parks. Quite often other families also live in apartments, so it's not like a new thing.
If you're advertising your service to the families in your building, then how perfect is that to drop as they go or to be able to pick up as they come home? Like that, to be able to offer a fabulous service that's also really convenient, that might be really appealing. Yeah.
So I guess really you just need to put your case forward and also think about whether families are going to be booking with you. So really keep that in mind. If you're in an apartment building, like if you're in an apartment building and everyone else is in houses around you, then, that might be a bit tricky. So just keep that's all I would say. I just keep that in mind. So great question.
Totally love that question.
Now we do have a question in the comments from Leanne. She's asking, is it worth, is it worth doing, so family daycare wage-wise, how much can you get per week? This is like one of the questions I get all of the time, and it really depends on how much you're happy to work, so how many hours you're willing to work.
Absolutely.
Whether you have your own children, because when I started, I had two of my own kids, so I could only have 2 under school age positions available each day, which really cuts your income in half from a potential 4.
Yeah, if you're going under schoolies.
Yes, and then you can also, if you want to do those longer days, you could do before and after school care, weekend care, overnight care. It really depends what your hours you're willing to work, and also how much you're able to charge. Now, it will vary in different areas, how qualified you are and things like that. And then again, it depends on the demand in your area. So I always tell people to research, ring up.
Lots and lots of research.
Yeah. Have they all got vacancies? Are the centres half full?
I say to educators, do a ring around, look at Care for Kids, do all those sorts of things at least every 6 months, if not 3 months. So really do stay on top of the market that you are in. And two, it depends on what you're willing to do realistically. When I first started, I was a little bit out of town, but the the centres in town, they weren't opening until several opened at 8, but several weren't opening till 7 or 7:30. And the parents that I had needed to be at work by 6:30. So a centre wasn't going to work for them. So by me opening at 6:30, they were willing to drive another 10K out of town to drop their children to me, often on the way, but they were willing to come out to me. And I was able to fill up almost instantly because I was offering a service that wasn't offered in town. Yeah. And so I think, and therefore, you can come in at the middle or high end of the market as well, because you're offering a service that's needed. If you want to offer a service that is absolutely flooded, you're not going to be able to earn, a higher income. But then if you're offering service that is really needed and that parents will pay for, then the ability to earn that higher income is also there.
Yeah. Excellent. And Di has just made a comment saying when you start, you really do take anything. And that was kind of what I did when I started. I kind of put my feelers out there and said, look, I'm available 3 days a week. I locked in those particular 3 days. And I filled Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So that really worked for me. So kind of...
I don't know if I like that statement, but because I really do encourage educators to have a bit of a plan in their head. And
well, I knew I wanted to do 3 days.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't sure. I was very flexible because, as I said, I had the 2 other kids at home with me.
Yeah.
And so when I spoke to parents, I was more particular about the families I took on. And the ages. Yeah. Like that was for me something that I was more focused on. The days didn't bother me so much.
Yeah.
Whether I worked a Wednesday or Friday.
You still had a really clear plan of what sort of families you were looking for, but then you were offering flexibility as well. And I think the 2 of those, are a great way to start. But
yes. Well, I was only ever going to offer the 3 days total. Yep. So, but all my bookings at the start were just all 2 days. So I managed to kind of wiggle it around.
Nice. Yeah.
And because they all didn't want like this, but it spread out over 3 days. So that worked out very well. But yeah, it's, I just really, really urge people to ring around and find out if there's demand. Yeah. Talk to some parents. There's some money involved and there's a lot of time involved in getting set up. So you want to make sure you're doing it properly and do your research.
Yeah, okay, research. And regular research. Like, don't just assume because you come in and you're full right now that in 6 months' time you can, I'm full so I can put my fees up. Research first.
Yes, yeah. All right, so our next question tonight is, why do we pay schemes? So what exactly are we paying for? Because, there was a couple of years ago, a lot of the funding was scrapped that the government was giving to schemes, which allowed them to charge a much lower rate to educators, and it allowed them to be quite active. And there was a huge shift. When that funding was cut, a lot of schemes, there were a lot that were kind of closing down. But schemes had to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Mostly I think it was only one scheme per area that was kind of selected for funding. But the rest had to stand on their own 2 feet. And what I saw happen was a lot of the fees rose, and a lot of the services provided by schemes dropped.
And
it was like, so now I'm paying sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times the price of what I was paying before, yet I'm not getting the same service. So people who are fairly new to family daycare wouldn't have experienced that shift, but would still be asking the question, why am I paying, $1.10 or $1.20 per hour per child? And I mean, some educators are paying several $100s a week. to their
Yeah,
scheme.
yep.
And what are they paying for? And I know you used to work in a scheme, so I think you'd be the best person to answer.
Yeah, no, I did.
Two sides to the story. I mean, the schemes have a lot of that responsibility on their shoulders, not just the educator.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were are a council scheme. So they, very much want the books balanced, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so it, by the time you factor into the fact that schemes are paying rent, they're paying wages, they are a lot of the behind the scenes, your policies, they need to be reviewed. They need to be kept up to date. Your changes to the regulations, even though they might be minor or appear minor when they come through to us from the scheme, they've actually had a lot of thought process and a lot of how will this affect us, discussions on them, how they're going to be documented properly, that sort of thing as well. And a lot of that's behind the scenes that educators pay to not have to worry about, I suppose. Yeah. But we don't realise we're paying for it to not worry about it until, those big changes come in and we're actually required to make changes because of it. But I think a lot of those costs are not recognised by educators because they seem so small to us as educators, but that's because the scheme's doing their job, in my eyes. So I think policies reviews, your A&R paperwork, etc., that has to be planned out over several years. It's not just being done the week or two before you get your A&R. It's actually been done for the 3 years before you're done. And someone has to pay for that. And that's part of where those fees go to. And a big chunk of that, of course, is timesheets of processing, making sure they're all kept up to date. And there's actually quite a process of checking them and processing them and then coming back, checking they've been processed correctly before paying. And again, a lot of that, we pay for them to do it behind the scenes so we don't have to worry about it. And so we don't worry about it. And a lot of the time we don't recognise that that's where our fees are going to.
Yeah.
In the same token, but schemes, some schemes I think are considerably better in support than others. I absolutely adore the scheme that I'm with. They still offer playgroup. They still offer monthly visits. We still get, I would say I chat on the phone to my office most weeks. For a friendly chat, is everything right? Can we help with anything? Do you need anything extra emailed out? And to me, it's reassuring. And it's also less isolating. We were talking about isolation before with educators. If you're getting a phone call each week to just check everything's on track and everything's good and your families are all right, you're not going to have any vacancies coming up that they need to discuss with you, it's a good feeling. And I'm willing to pay for that.
And I think one of the other things as well is that they have to be on call at any point that an educator is operating.
They really do. Yeah.
If you've got educators working over the weekend, someone still needs to technically be able to go there if there was an emergency situation or go to hospital, if there's something, if they were needed there, if there was an accident. So, there's a lot that does go on behind the scenes. And I guess the way you explained it then made me kind of even open my eyes a bit more because there was one point where I was having a really difficult time with a child. She just wouldn't settle. There was a lot of issues. And my coordinator rang me and, just for just to make sure that I think she was chasing a form or something like that. I said, yeah, I'll send it in a minute. And she could tell I was quite upset. And she asked me what was going on. And within a few hours, she was over. She came over to see how I was doing, to make sure I was okay. And she followed up and she helped me settle this child. You know, it was quite amazing. And she also created like this chart for one of these children that I had who really needed to know exactly what was happening throughout the day. And she made a whole chart for this one child. And I mean, it was quite amazing the amount of effort they go to. So I guess it's when they're not providing that service. So if for educators who are constantly having, which I guess is the core of where most issues stem from, is about, you know, the pays aren't going through, the timesheets aren't processing right, or, you know, all of those things are happening. Anything to do with the pay side of family daycare, if there's any kind of issue like, am I allowed to charge public holidays? You know, if this child's away, can I charge for this other child? You know, all these things. When educators start to feel like they're not being understood or things aren't being sorted out quick enough, that's where the communication really starts to break down. And one of the other questions that we had tonight was, what's the process of moving to a new scheme? And I do see this a lot, and I certainly don't have a problem with educators moving schemes. I think you really want to make sure this is the last resort if you are moving schemes. There's a lot of work behind the scenes that needs to be done by both you and your coordinator. You know, the first point of call if you're having major issues is to make sure, you know, if you get a bit flustered, I get a bit flustered, I get a bit anxious sometimes if I have a bit of confrontation ahead of me, you know, put it in an email or write it down if you're too nervous to talk to them about it, because you know, you're one of many educators and they may not always know exactly where you're at all of the time. So making sure that you email them and follow up if you have some major concerns, especially when it comes to income, because, you know, we're not all just doing this for fun. It's not usually just a side thing. It's your business. It's usually it's the main source, if not the main source of income for a family. So, you know, it's important that these things are dealt with. You know, if you've tried all of these things, you've tried communicating with them and that's just not happening, and you've really got to a point where you feel like, you know, nothing's going to budge. You know, there's a pretty lengthy, I guess it's not a lengthy process to change schemes. I have changed schemes. I've been with 2 in total. And when I changed schemes, I had really formed a close relationship with each of my families and they all wanted to move with me. And we had a quick chat before this.
We did.
Kath brought up the great point that sometimes families register with you because you're with a particular scheme.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they've heard the reputation of the scheme is great. Maybe friends, family have educators through that scheme before. So you just need to be aware that they may not necessarily come through with you.
They may not, and I think that's one part of changing schemes that educators don't think through a lot of the time. They just assume that their clients and our clients and our parents will move with us, and that's not always the case. Just something to be, you know, something to add to the thought process if you are really absolutely at the end of trying everything else.
Yeah. So I guess with the process of doing it is you do want to give everyone a bit of notice, because when you move to a new scheme, you need to re-enroll as an educator. Quite often schemes won't charge you to enroll if you're moving from another scheme, because they really want you to come on board. And but there's still paperwork you've got to send them everything again. You've got to fill out all the forms again, and the parents have to re-enroll with this new scheme. So there's a bit of paperwork for them involved too. So you need to be mindful of that. Again, it's not the end of the world. And most schemes, if you are moving, they won't charge families a registration fee if they normally would charge for new families. Again, you need to question that.
Yes, something to ask because each scheme is different.
Yeah. So, and then, come out and do another safety check. Make sure your environment's up to standard, so you pretty much are doing all of the things that you would have done when you first started, except you would have all the paperwork ready to go, but you still need to complete all that. Families need to complete it all. Also, you need to change your signage that's around, and, parents would need to be made aware of it. I guess the one thing that you also need to be aware of is that when you're changing schemes, sometimes they're not using the same software for their timesheets. Perhaps their timesheets are submitted manually, or you have been submitting them manually. Now you have to learn a new system. So there's those things to consider as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do you think they need to think about?
Yeah, I think fees are a great one to ask about, that there isn't any hidden fees going through. Whether your families are actually going to go with you, and whether philosophy as well too. I mean, a new scheme will have different ways of doing things, different ways of maybe expecting your paperwork and your documenting and whatnot, and it's good to ask those questions first. Don't move assuming it's going to be a better or different in a particular way, and then find out that it's quite different to what you expected it to do.
Yeah.
So again, it comes back to just having all the right conversations, I suppose.
And not just with the scheme. Talk to educators of the new
other
scheme.
Educators.
That's
absolutely.
what I did.
Yeah.
And that's where I got my information from, because schemes are just like any business. They will tell you what you want to hear generally.
Yep.
But with educators, they've actually gone through the whole process. They're dealing with the scheme day in, day out. So they've got a much clearer idea of exactly what they are truly like. And that is really important. That's very difficult, though, for a new educator.
Yes, it's a big deal.
Because you don't know where to find educators to talk about which scheme is good and what their experience has been. So that's why some Facebook groups are really helpful to kind of chat about those things.
Yeah, you've also got your Care for Kids. A lot of educators are on your Care for Kids these days. But the other thing is reading the policies and procedures of the new scheme. Take the time to read it before you commit, I think, is another thing that is another place to be caught out, I suppose.
Yeah, that was a big tip. I actually got that tip from an educator before I even started family daycare. I went and saw this educator, and she said, find out what their water play policy is. And I thought, that's an odd thing to say. And I'm like, all right. And found
But actually where you're living, that's really important.
It is. It's very hot here, and some schemes do not allow any water play. And so that really cut down, made me shortlist a few schemes based on the fact that we could have, a certain amount of water that was supervised, but we need to be able to do that because it's so hot. So that was the best tip, because that was probably one of the pivotal decisions or reasons why I went with that scheme. So very, very interesting. So did you have anything else you wanted to add to that? Because that's all of our questions tonight. We have actually got through all of them.
I think that's it. yeah, the conversation, just be really, really careful and make sure it's your last resort.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because you don't want to make more work for you and your families, but sometimes it's needed, and it was for me. I just wasn't getting what I needed from that scheme, and I think they were going through some issues too. So when I moved, it was just, it was quite exciting, and yeah, it was a great decision. But again, there was just a bit more work involved. I didn't know how much work was involved, to be honest, before I moved. I just thought it was like, send them a form and I'm done. But no, it was not like that. I actually didn't know that my families had to re-register as well. I don't know why, because of course they would, because they're registered with the scheme. They're not registered with me. And yeah, so there was all those little surprises that I found along the way. But yeah.
Look, I mean, if you need to do it, then, and there has actually been schemes that have closed lately as well, with the change of the fees and the change of the government support. There has been schemes that have closed, and educators have had no choice. So it is about that, having, making yourself a list and actually working through all the things that you need or you want in a scheme. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that was a really, really fun discussion tonight.
I enjoyed that. That was good.
A good one. So if you have any questions, send them through to us. You can send them through by message or leave a comment underneath this video, and we will definitely add that to our list. We have another power session next week.
We do.
7:30.
Yeah.
And yeah, we look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a great week.
Have a great week, everyone.
Short week.
It's a short week. It is.
All right. I hope all of you down south are enjoying the last week of the school holidays as well. We're already back at school, so.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. Oh. Yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we've still got. And pupil free days on Monday, so they don't go back to Wednesday.
Right. Okay. Yes, because my son goes to kinder only Monday and Tuesday. So for the next 3 weeks, for the first 3 weeks, he's only got 1 day a week. So I was like, we really needed that 2 days.
Absolutely. When they're ready for it, they're ready for it.
He is so ready for it. So anyway, not long. All right. I will see you all next week. Thank you.
Bye, guys.